Uh, so a very good morning to everyone. Today I'll be speaking on pseudoexfoliation glaucoma. So before I go into the topic, I will be sharing a small case of a patient whom I had seen just a few days back. He was a 60 years old gentleman who presented with a gradual diminution of vision excuse me, in the right eye and pain in the left eye for 2 years. On examination, his best corrected visual acuity by 6 by 36 and 48 in the right eye and 6 by 9 and 6 in the left eye. On anterior segment examination on slit lamp, the anterior segment was found to be normal in the right eye except for an early cataract. But in the left eye, a relative apparent pupillary defect was noted and the intraocular pressure was high. It was around 38 millimeter of AJ on Goldmann applanation tonometry. Gonioscopy was done, which revealed open angles. The patient was dilated and to examine the fundus. And it revealed that in the right eye, the cup disc ratio was 0.4 with a healthy neuroretinal rim. Choroidal neovascular membrane was seen at the macula in the right eye, which explained the low vision in the right eye. But in the left eye, the cup disc ratio was 0.8 with a bipolar notch and a significant pallor in the disc, but the macula was healthy. So this explained the RAPD, which we observed in the left eye. But when we re-examined the anterior segment on slit lamp on dilation, a subtle finding was noted on the anterior capsule, a fine membrane on the anterior capsule. And as we can see in the picture, it was pseudoexfoliation. So this gave us the clue to the diagnosis of unilateral glaucoma in this patient, so we went ahead with the OCT as expected. The optic nerve, it showed severe damage, and the visual field, which showed advanced field loss in the left eye. The right eye was not done because of the macular pathology. So here we have a patient with unilateral severe glaucoma at presentation. So keeping the short case in mind, we'll go ahead with the presentation. So pseudoexfoliation syndrome, as we all know, is an age-related systemic microfibrillopathy caused by progressive accumulation and gradual deposition of extracellular gray and white matter over various tissues of the body. The material is deposited in different structures of the eye. Increased risk of development of glaucoma and cataract are the most common conditions which raise concern among these patients. Now coming to pseudoexfoliation glaucoma, it is considered to be the most common form of secondary open angle glaucoma. Although the condition is mostly bilateral, it is usually asymmetric, and that's why unilateral presentation is common. It has been found to have a worse prognosis than POAG due to higher fluctuations in intraocular pressures and a more severe optic nerve damage and visual field changes. Hypothesis is that the optic nerve has an intrinsic susceptibility to intraocular pressure damage because of the extracellular material deposition on the optic nerve. These patients also tend to have usually higher levels of intraocular pressure than those with POAG. Now coming to the epidemiology, the reported prevalence in different parts of the world varies from 0 to 38% in different populations, and the prevalent rate of the syndrome in glaucoma patients around 0 to 93%. The prevalence increases with age, and high prevalence is noted in patients between 60 to 70 years of age. So what is the pathophysiology? Pseudoexfoliation glaucoma mostly is open angle. So it occurs due to accumulation of pseudoexfoliative material on the trabecular meshwork, leading to its obstruction and rise in intraocular pressure. However, in some cases, angle closure glaucoma or mixed mechanism glaucoma is also found, which is mostly due to zonulopathy leading to forward displacement of the lens. This is because of the pseudoexfoliative material getting deposited on the zonules. May also occur due to progressively maturing cataract, which causes narrowing of the angles. Now, diagnosis is essentially clinical. A meticulous slit lamp examination, including gonioscopy and pupillary dilatation, is considered to be the gold standard. Coming to intraocular pressures, usually these patients, as I've already said, usually present with very high intraocular pressure and show a wide range of IOP fluctuations. On slit lamp examination of the cornea, there may be presence of pseudoexfoliative material or pigments on the corneal endothelium. A decrease in number of endothelial cells and increase in guttae have also been noted. The anterior chamber may have a shallow depth. On examining the iris and the pupil, there will be deposition of whitish flakes on the anterior posterior surface of the iris and at the pupillary margin, which might show a moth-eaten appearance and have transillumination defects. In most cases, there is poor or absent pupillary dilatation as a result of atrophic and fibrotic changes in the iris sphincter muscle. And these patients usually tend to have a more rigid pupil. Gonioscopic, most of these patients have open angles. Pigments and flakes of exfoliative material can be observed over the structure of the angle. A particular pattern of pigment deposition on the Schwalbe's line is called Sampaulis's line. However, some patients may present with narrow and closed angle glaucomas. On the lens, we find a classical pattern called the bullseye pattern, in which the flakes of pseudoexfoliation material are deposited on the anterior lens capsule in 3 distinct zones. Usually the central zone corresponds to the pupillary diameter. There is an intermediate clear zone due to rubbing of the iris against the anterior lens capsule, and the most peripheral radiating zone. Phacodenesis due to zonular weakness and lens subluxation may be noted. The optic disc evaluation often shows severe disc damage and some amount of pallor in some cases, as ischemic changes in the retina and optic disc have been reported due to deposition of this material on the vascular endothelium. Asymmetry in the disc is noted in unilateral cases. Though the diagnosis is mainly clinical, ultrasound biomicroscopy can be done in cases with suspected zonular weakness and lens subluxation to find out the degree of weakness. Coming to the management or treatment, of course, medical management is the first line of treatment for these patients, and initially they show good response to medical treatment, that is the topical anti-glaucoma medications. Prostaglandin analogs seem to be the initial drug of choice, not only because they cause higher lowering of IOP, but also have a longer duration of action and a better control of the diurnal variation and the IOP spikes. However, these patients in many cases become refractory to medical therapy. Lasers are also an option. Laser trabeculoplasty, ALT, SLT have also been tried in these patients and have seemed to produce a better response than in POAG due to diffuse pigmentation of the trabecular meshwork. YAG peripheral iodotomy is effective in mixed mechanism and angle closure glaucomas. Surgical treatment is the option in cases where the patients have become refractory to medical therapy or they do not respond to laser therapy. Trabeculectomy is the surgery of choice in these patients. Glaucoma drainage devices, and often trabeculectomy have to be augmented with antifibrotic agents. Glaucoma drainage devices are used in cases where there is a failed trabeculectomy before or some other surgeries which have led to conjunctival scarring. Cataract extraction or a combined surgery, that is cataract with a glaucoma filtration surgery, gives good results in patients with narrow or closed angles. So I would like to conclude that pseudoexfoliation glaucomas are often severe and progress rapidly. Meticulous slit lamp examination to pick up subtle signs of pseudoexfoliation can lead to early detection of the disease. Aggressive management of glaucoma with proper monitoring can prevent progression and blindness in such patients. Thank you.